Be Wealthy and Smart, episode 946.
Step into a world of wealth and financial freedom without budgets, boredom, or bosses on Be Wealthy and Smart. And now, here's your host, Linda P. Jones.
Welcome to Be Wealthy and Smart. I'm Linda P. Jones, America's Wealth Mentor, empowering women and men worldwide to financial freedom. On today's show, we're going to do an update on silver because I've been getting some questions from people who might have come into this investment late, really don't have the full picture of what's going on, and I want to give you the update to the minute in terms of new information that we have and what's really going on. Because things aren't always what they seem, and that's particularly true of an investment in silver. You see, last year, silver was the best performer, up 46%, and we participated in that beautiful rise last year when it was a difficult year for any investment and people weren't really sure what was going to happen. But we were feeling really good about silver and mining stocks in particular because so much money had been created that I felt with all that new debt created that the precious metals were just bound to do much better. And in fact, that was the case. This year, we've had a bit of a pullback, but just because silver has dipped 10% doesn't mean that that rally is over. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. We've just finished a correction in the stock market and in silver as well. And what we're seeing is it looks like silver's put in a bottom here and that it's going to have a fabulous fourth quarter. You see, lots of individuals bought silver this year and it was getting very, very difficult to get physical silver. But that's not what's being traded in silver investments. What's actually being traded is paper contracts that represent physical silver. Well, how is it that the paper contracts are selling for less than a physical ounce of silver? You see, it doesn't make any sense, and it's telling us that that's a false price. When you try to actually go out and buy a physical ounce of silver, you can't get it for $23. You just can't. It doesn't exist. So those paper contracts really aren't reflecting the true price of silver. And in addition to that, there's something more going on here. But let me give you the update and then I'll give you the background to it. So the update is recently we got news, this was last week, that a group of banks that partnered with the London Metals Exchange to launch gold and silver futures in 2017 is preparing to abandon the project. What that means is that those paper silver futures contracts that traded regardless of what you really had to pay to get physical silver has been used by the banking system to suppress the price of silver. Why? Because silver is very rare. It's much rarer than gold. It's used in a lot of technology such as solar panels, cell phones, computers, electric cars, etc. But more importantly, if silver were allowed to rise in value, the people would invest in silver instead of paper money. The people would realize that silver would go up in value and become worth more over time, and that would be something preferable to a paper dollar that loses value over time because, especially in the last year, so many dollars have been created, and anything you have a lot of supply of tends to reduce the value. So this is very good news that the banks are abandoning their futures contracts. That means that silver has a chance of being able to get to what its true value should be. And those banks that have been shorting silver massively, and they do it in the middle of the night when nobody's really trading, they go into the market and sell short a lot of silver, driving the price down when nobody's really trading and it's a very thin market. So the banks have tons of silver that they're short. and they're going to have to buy silver to cover those contracts that they sold. So when you're shorting, you're selling high and pushing the price down so that you can buy it at a lower price and cover your trade. And you make the difference between what you sold it at high and what you bought it for low. So if you sold it at 20 and bought it at 10, you'd make a $10 profit. Well, the banks are massively short silver, and that means they have to cover their shorts. They have to go out and buy silver and close out that trade. Well, that's fairly easy to do when you're just dealing with paper contracts. But the people that hold the paper contracts have the option of requesting physical silver instead of a paper contract. So more and more people are requesting that the trade be settled in physical silver. And that means that the banks have to go out and find the physical silver if they are short more than the silver that they own, which I believe they are in a very dramatic way. So that means they're going to have to go into the open market and buy silver, which will drive the price of silver up as they're trying to cover their trade and close out those contracts. And that's why I think the fourth quarter, we're going to see silver rise probably 50% from here to around a $38 average ounce of silver. Now, that might seem like a big number, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not. Because when we go back in history to 1913, when the Federal Reserve was formed, at that time, the ratio of dollars to silver was $2.65. In other words, you would be indifferent whether you had $1 or $2.65 per ounce of silver. But now that so much debt has been created and there's so many dollars in existence, the value of silver has actually risen compared to paper money. So today, the per ounce silver dollar ratio would be $2,870 per ounce of silver for $1 today. And that's what people don't understand, is that silver is one of the most undervalued assets on the entire planet because it's actually cheaper than it was over 40 years ago when the Hunt brothers went crazy with silver. But it's also worth so much more because there's been so much more money printed. So that's why we own silver. So for someone to say, oh, silver's down 10% this year, that's a calamity of some sort, or that isn't an investment that's working out, you're not really understanding the truth of silver if that's where you are. And after being up 46% last year, it's not unusual for an investment like that to pull back before it starts its next run. And I do believe that silver will be very strong, as I said, in the fourth quarter of this year and into next year. So that's my update for you on silver. I hope that the picture is clearer in terms of why silver's price is as low as it is, why it really shouldn't be that low at all. It should be closer to $2,870 an ounce per dollar. And it's even impossible to get the paper value of silver right now if you try and go out and buy it. It's much more expensive than what the contracts are trading for right now. But the good news is this London Metals Exchange is giving up the futures contracts. And that's what we've been waiting for, hoping for, looking for, watching for. That's the big change that we think is going to allow silver to take the governor off and to allow it to rise to its true value over time. It won't happen overnight, but it can happen over time. And this is definitely going to give it some freedom in order to find its true value. So we continue to hold silver long term. We continue to know that we have one of the most undervalued assets on the planet, and that at some point over the next several years, it will be growing into its true valuation, especially now that paper futures contracts that banks have been using to suppress the price are no longer going to be used. That's very good news. If you haven't yet subscribed to Be Wealthy and Smart, hit the subscribe button and you'll be notified as soon as new podcasts are available so you never miss one of them. That's all for today. Until next time, live the good life and be wealthy and smart.
Thank you for listening to Be Wealthy and Smart with Linda P. Jones. share the wealth, and tell your family and friends about the show. Check out our website, blog, and social media for more riches at www.bewealthyandsmart.com.